All right, cool. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. I really appreciate it. Thanks for sticking with this. I know that it wasn't what it was supposed to be. It's funny. This is the first time I'm actually using LinkedIn Live, and
Mhm.
I didn't know that you had to sign up with a third party to do it. I just figured it was going to give me, the ability to start the meeting and yeah. I don't know. Have you ever used it, Fred?
I have not. One of the reasons I joined was to get a feel for how that worked.
Well, let me be your guinea pig, man, because it's I never do this. Like I never use a new piece of technology without vetting it first, and I'm like, what could go wrong? It's LinkedIn. They got to have their stuff together. So yeah, fun. Without further ado, I it's going to be short and sweet, because I've got about a half an hour to get through this before the Zoom thing cuts out on me. I want you guys to get the most out of this. I've got what, like 4 or 5 people on the call right now, so we'll jump into it. I'm William Corns. I started Village Bee Consulting LLC at the beginning of this year to really provide some consultative capability to growing companies, right? So I ran a company for 18 years. I was a North American senior sales manager for a very large corporation. I've worked in startup organizations as well. Anything from sales operations, business development, I've pretty much done it all. Grew Wilco Imaging, which was my company that I ran for 18 years. I grew that from $300 to $4 million in sales. So and bootstrapping it all the way. So it wasn't an easy feat, but a lot of the practices that I talk about here come from that. Super blessed. This is my wife and me at an event. I have 2 beautiful kids, and we just have a great time. So I spend most of my time trying to bring as much value as I can for the companies that I support. We'll jump right into it. I think that I always love going online and doing a search for whatever topic I'm talking about, right? And you come up with these weird definitions. And I don't think that this one's far off, but I always find it very interesting because it's very convoluted, right? So I'll just read it real quick. Business development is a process that helps businesses identify and pursue opportunities for growth and profitability. It involves planning for the future by analyzing market opportunities, understanding the target audience, and forming partnerships. BD can also include adding value to the company, such as improving the bottom line or increasing market reach. Now, I don't know about you guys, but it's it's always so frustrating when we try and make things very difficult, right? And I love what Confucius says, and I also did a little bit of research on, what sort of quotes can I use for things that are very convoluted. And Confucius, I love this because it's like, in sales, I always use the KISS rule, and I try and apply that with anything, and you'll see a lot of that in this presentation. Life is really simple, but we insist on making it complicated. And I think that's so true because what do? We look at things and we go, how can I make this so convoluted so no one else steals it? And really what you end up doing is you end up shooting yourself in the foot because no one can follow your process, or the communication is not clear. So what I've boiled it down here today is 5 C's of BD. And so making it extremely clear. And the things that I want you guys to get away from this, and the way that this presentation should go, is one, it should be super engaging, right? Like it should grab you. You should learn something from it. It should be dynamic. I want you guys to be able to pipe in and say, look, how do you apply that? What tool did you use? What sort of thing can I bring away? Or is it a concept that maybe I'm talking about that you're like, hey, I want to press into that, right? So this in the last thing is I want it to be useful. You spent your time with me here today to get something out of this, right? Whether it's Fred, he's like, hey, I just need to learn LinkedIn Live, and you just showed me the don't commit the cardinal sin of launching an event without testing your tech, Will. Um, or is it, hey, the curiosity and creativity point, I really want to break into. I don't understand this fully, right? So jump into it. Clarity. Um, you know, it's clarity is got to be the number one thing. It's something that not everybody really focuses on. They think that if they just say it, that everybody's going to get it. Everybody's going to be super clear on it. And the way that I work and the way that I started breaking down goals was starting with the end in mind. So if I started with the end in mind, then I worked backwards, then I knew where I needed to start, who I needed to have, what resources I needed, what sort of things that I needed to get in play, um, to oops, to I'm going to get out of mode because I have some notes in here, and you guys can just see them if you can see my screen. Um, Knowing the ultimate goal, like what are we trying to achieve, right? And in BD, this is very important because BD is to drive towards those goals, is to make sure that you have the foundation to drive forward, to keep the company on the rails, that you're either opening up new opportunities or new markets, you're aligning with partners. If you have an omni-channel approach, you're if you have an ISV or somebody else, or you're going after mergers and acquisitions, right? This is all part of business development. You're developing the business to move forward, to grow, to continue to do better. And whether you're farming your existing companies or customers that you're working with, it's getting really clear on what success looks like. And in a lot of companies, I mean, you could apply this to company values as well, as what you should do with building a company. Um, Measuring what timeline you're working with, right? So if you have a goal and then you're breaking it down by a timeline, whether that's a year, a month, 2 months, whether you're opening up new markets in 3 years, or you're working on a horizon project, right? Um, Aligning your goal with that timeline of what success looks like, and then what impact are you having, right? What purpose are we trying to drive towards? If you could get extremely clear on those activities, it's going to be a game changer, because you'll know how to articulate it, you'll know how to communicate it to up and down the chain. And we'll talk about communication here in just a minute. I love curiosity and creativity are probably my two favorite C's in this whole thing. I'm more on the creativity and the curious. I think that's what gets me in trouble all the time, is my natural curiosity. It's what made me ask the question, like, why can't I start a business? And now that I've run businesses and run teams, I'll tell you all the reasons why I can't do it. Um, so but I think you start asking that question, like, why not? Why isn't this possible? And you start digging, and it's that curiosity that allows you to start building on that foundation to open up those new markets, right? I think salespeople, you run into more opportunities as though, like, why not? What hurdles are in front of us? And if you get really curious as to why can't we get around that? What if we go develop that? What if we are number one? What does that look like? Um, and that's the difference between BD and sales, right? BD doesn't have these clear lines as to what a playbook or how you should run that. It's kind of a loose affiliation. All right. You want to ask those questions, because that's how things get disrupted. That's how things grow, or you align with somebody as being naturally curious about either that culture or that person, right? And guys, you have any questions, you have comments, I know I talk fast, please jump in. Throwing it in the chat is probably only gonna, slow me down, but appreciate it, Fred.
So clarity is a great topic, and Karen Martin has a excellent book that dives into that topic. So I just wanted to share that.
That's great, guys. Throw any resources you have in there. Hopefully everybody can grab that and gain something out of it. Thank you for sharing. Um, Getting curious what the market needs as well is big. What are the customers saying? Being able to take that voice of customer back and get their feedback. And it's not just, allowing the customers to lead you towards things. It's asking them, why? Like, why is that important to you? You know, what, and then what? What happens after that? Who who needs this, right? And asking those questions allows you not only to understand where your customer is going, but understand why it's important to them. And that's huge, right? So if you're going to tell product development, hey, we need this product, and it's not just because, hey, you know, Fred said so, or Joe said so, or Shelby said so. It's hey, this is the reason why we need it, is because they're going in this direction. And now if you're dealing in a customer base um that is in the same market, then you get to start having this consistency that says, hey, there's a shift coming. And now you're able to articulate that to product development, marketing, et cetera, and starting to get some momentum and have that shift. Um, One question I always love to ask customers is, hey, if you could wave your magical wand and change anything about your current situation, your current product, your current customer base, whatever it is, what would you do? And they'll usually tell you, they'll say, "Oh man, I would change this." And that tells you where their pain point is so that you can uncover that and get curious about drive, like, why is that important to them? Why would they change that? Right. So asking questions and then them responding always allows you to ask more questions, which gains more insight about things. Um, Again, creativity, one of my favorites. I love being creative. I built a company on being creative, having different conversations with customers, vendors, business partners, et cetera, around different things. And you know, I think that customers want to hear something fresh, not too far off base of where they want to be. But I think that they get tired of hearing the same old thing. They get tired of hearing the same old questions, like, when are you going to send in the PO? How many do you need? All that kind of stuff. Or, hey, what are you guys doing? It's like, well, man, we put out 200, you know, social blasts a month, and it tells you exactly what we're doing, where we're going. Um, I think it's getting creative in the way that we ask questions to customers to elicit different responses, or getting creative in who we're talking to, right? If you can talk to the receptionist and she knows the value prop of the business, don't discount that, right? She may have been there for 18 years and knows everybody in the business, or he's been there for 18 years and knows everybody in the business. And that is valuable information, right? As BD people, we're information gatherers. We're intelligence people. We're gathering this stuff so that we can make sense of it and hand it off. Um, Building things with the problem in mind, right? So how are we articulating that? How are we gaining things, or driving towards solving their problems? And how are we either taking disparate products from our portfolio? If you are in a large company, in a large matrix company, and you have a bunch of different product silos, well, maybe it's getting professional services involved in being able to build an API call that goes across maybe your voice database, your clock in database, and whatever. And you can utilize this whatever market you're in, right? So maybe is getting a third party involved and being able to build that, right? So rather than, hey, we don't sell that, or we don't have that product, is how can I engage one of my partners to be able to build on top of what I do? Can we give it to them in a white label box and allow them to build on top of it? What unique capability do they have? Um, you know, one thing I don't think that people do is get the customer involved in the process, and this is a big one. This is one that allowed me to hold customers for 18 years. Is I would get them involved in the iteration process. So a lot of times, a customer will come to sales and they'll say, "Hey, I need this product," and they'll say, "Okay," and they'll give a quote, and the customer says yes, and then they try and hit the mark and they don't hit it, and it's either a yes, it's either a pass or a fail, right? And this really hinders the relationship part of the business, because it doesn't allow the customer to walk along and know all the pitfalls that you fell into in this journey. If you get them to go along, either they're going to have a good idea as to how to solve that because they know their business probably better than you do, um, or you're missing the chance to bring them along and have them ride along. So the result of that, what happens is they trust you more because they know what you've gone through. So when you say, "Hey, this is a lot more that we took on," they understand it. They understand the pain. They know why you're off track and over budget and over timeline. The other thing is it keeps competition out of the game because that customer, because they co-developed that with you, or they helped you, they were alongside, they were in the trenches with you. It keeps that competition away because that customer is going to fight for you to stay in it. They know what you brought into there. So, taking that different approach, looking at the different personas, bringing more people in, and providing some sort of coalescence to that you're creating something, right? You're creating that energy, you're creating that cohesion with that
So
consistency.
William,
Yeah,
the
go for it.
what you talked about is very parallel to agile, and
Mhm.
people associate agile with software, but that concept can be applied, and it's a great risk mitigation because you're only expending is if your sprints are 2 weeks or 4 weeks, you're only expending a certain amount of effort before you're showing it to the customer. So it
Right.
really does bring that along, and it rings true. I worked at an organization where software spent a year and $1 million, and the customer said, "That's not what we asked for."
Right, right. And what's the result of that? You have a pissed off customer that's probably not going to do business with you again. And now you've got to either eat it or you got to chase that customer for payment. Now you got to get legal involved, right? Which is the
Yes.
anti-sales team. So why go down that? Link arms, and I get it. No one likes egg on their face, but if everybody's in agreement as to what the play is and how to go, most of the time I've had customers fight for me to stay in it and stay on,
Yeah.
right? And they'll give you more business because now they trust you that you're going to say, look, I, I, I screwed up. I didn't realize this, it was an oversight or whatever. And most of the time they'll be like, hey, I'm over budget on this. I can't make it up, but the next project, I'll help you out with it, right? And
Yeah.
they give you the next project because now they feel bad that no one saw it, right? If they saw it, they're gonna raise their hand too, like they're involved in the process.
Yeah.
Um, BD, I think that a lot of people get uh mystified or off track with what BD is, and it's not just this one time thing. It's not just making a phone call and trying to sell somebody something. That's inside sales. That's some other division, right? With BD, you're trying to make Jeremy. What's up, dude?
What's up, Will?
Long time no see, brother.
It sure has. Good to see you.
Thanks for joining, man.
Yeah,
Uh,
of course.
so it's not this one time thing, and we can't think of that. I can't think of like, oh, I need to make a call today. You're trying to chip away at this, so you can use whatever analogy. I use 1,000 piece puzzle. It's not going to be done in the same day. It's kind of like you walk by it, you find a new piece, you're really searching through. You could use the sculpture or painting or whatever artist is trying to do something, but you keep chipping away at this, and what you end up doing is you end up getting that relationship, and maybe it's a back door that you climb in through, but you keep making forward progress at this goal. And this is why I talk a lot in the beginning about getting clarity, because if you're clear about your goal, the consistency, the cadence, it forms itself. You don't have to go, oh, well, I need to make a call a week or I need to do this. Sometimes it's like, hey, I'm only calling on Boeing. I'm only calling on Amazon. I'm going to chip away at product management because I know that if I get enough product managers that understand this or can relate, they're going to be my advocate, right? So you figure out who that is and you start consistently chipping away and going after it. If you're doing social media or anything else, it's the consistency. You got to get people into the repetition of how often you're going to call or what you're going to do, right? I think the last pinnacle, and this is a big one, this is one that I think a lot of companies overlook, is the communication. And I'm not just talking about clear communication, I'm talking about up the chain and down the chain. So BD, you're kind of stuck in the middle, right? You're after marketing, because usually marketing's doing the carpet bombs and laying doing the shock and awe type of thing. And then BD, you kind of come in and you're more like the CIA or special forces group that comes in and you're kind of in the middle. A lot of latitude, a lot of openness. But you should be grabbing a lot of information and feeding it into marketing. Like, hey, your campaigns are working. Our customers are hearing this. We're opening up this new market. This is what they need, and feeding that back so that their marketing messages get better. And then also feeding it into sales, getting really good at that customer handoff, right? Because you're not selling, you're creating that relationship. You're opening the door for sales. And when you do it right, it looks like magic because it's seamless. There's not this chunky, marketing sent this message and then, no one, BD has no ties to it. And then sales gets it and they have no idea what this customer is about. They just know that they got a phone call and they talk to Will. It's like, man, let's all get on the same page here. So that cadence of having, if you have disparate groups in BD, is making sure that the sales team knows, because they're going to be the ones that get this handed off to them, right? So if they get it handed off and they have no idea, shame on you. Like, you should be having regular meetings, because you also want that feedback from sales. Like, hey, that was awesome. Like, it allowed us to move really fast with these guys and gain market share. And this is how fast we had market share. We went from 10%, which you can trip over, right, doing anything, to 35% market penetration. And there's actually a curve that it's right around 13.5% that I think Simon Sinek talks about this in his Start With Why, is that tipping point where you actually start to gain that market penetration. And it's hard to get from that 10% to that 13.5, where you start getting those early adopters, right? So sometimes business development, that's your job, is to take this from that, hey, we tripped over 10% of the market. We think that there's something there. There's a lot of nuance. How do we get from tripping over 10% to actually making this a part of our core business, or an adjacent business that's going to feed into our overall strategy, right? And again, this stuff feeds back into itself. It's kind of like a continuous loop. You get more clear on the direction that you're going. You start to have some curiosity as to, okay, we think that there's something there. How do we go after it? Aligning getting your creative guys to figure out, how do we go attack this, and how do we get that penetration? What do we do? What does success look like? And then getting really consistent and building that over time, and then communicating it up and down the chain. Any questions about the things that I talked about here?
I wish I didn't join late. I missed a lot. So, I apologize for my
Dude,
tardiness.
you should have been giving this, not me.
No, I don't
You're
know.
a master at this.
You're doing a great job, sir.
Hey, so quickly, like, when you were back at IDS, what sort of things did you guys run into, challenges? Like, the machine vision business is obviously a very niche, kludgy business that's very incestual, right? It's everybody knows everybody. It's hard to understand, and it's even harder to gain like some momentum, right? Or put all these disparate products together. Maybe for others, like, what sort of things did you run into? How'd you overcome them?
Well, I mean, you obviously you run into, there's a lot of competition, right? So you run into the pricing thing, like, oh well, I mean, this is great. This is just a small piece of the product or project that we're putting together, right? These are the eyes of it. Um, my cell phone would do a great job. It takes great pictures, but I can't get it to connect. So we need a camera, but we also are under budget, right? So you get that and with the 2D space, sometimes you get the commoditization feel to it that people are just looking for the best price. And so you have to create you have to bring the value, right? Understand enough about the customer you're talking to be able to fill in some of the gaps and provide what kind of value you guys bring. And even if it's not on the technical side of your product, maybe it's in the customer service. Maybe it's in the hand holding that you'll provide to them. Maybe it's in the maybe you won't save a ton of money on this purchase, but your future needs, we can hit some of these, and we're looking for cost reduction on our side. So, and we'll pass that along to you as soon as we get it. So,
Uh,
um,
I like that. It's bringing the customer along with the message, right? Like getting them, making them understanding. And in machine vision, there's a lot of education that goes on, right? Because
mhm,
everybody starts off that very ignorant, says, hey, why can't I do this? Apple spends $600 million on these algorithms. Like, why my iPhone can do it? Why can't a machine vision camera do it?
right.
So there's a lot of education into physics or the workings or the limitations that happens, because it's not one for one, right?
No,
And then there's I think what you're saying is you build that relationship with walking the customer through that process, so that you end up having them trust you, so then you can lead them towards some sort of sale.
yep, exactly. It's being the go-to in terms of knowledge, right? Having That's how you build the trust, is the education piece helps them trust you, and the more you trust people and obviously like them, the better chance that you'll do business with them. Um,
Yeah.
so that
What
can be
what was
somewhat
one of
tricky.
the what was one of the like the best practices for business development that you saw when you were running the show over there?
Best practice that that I could think of off the top of my head would be to get there, to physically see what they're working on and see the systems, and there's nothing like face to face when you're trying to build a relationship. And not just that, when you get there and you see what they're working on, all of a sudden you notice other things, like not just maybe competitor cameras that are there that they're testing, but also maybe some other piece that they're missing, and if you're knowledgeable about what you can bring to the table, you might be able to actually solve another problem they don't even know they have yet,
Yeah.
just by showing up. And that's obviously been complicated a bit during COVID times, and everyone really willing to do a Zoom meeting instead of face to face now. That's definitely a little bit tougher than it used to be.
I ran into that a lot. I think early in my career, I kind of opened this up by just my story of starting Wilco Imaging and
Hmm.
starting it off at $300. So it's obviously on a shoestring budget, right? And
Yeah.
I started it as a distribution company, so a lot of the customers were they knew me, so they knew my relationship, and I had the product availability, and I would always get them things on time. So I wasn't in that like problem solving mode of a complete
Hmm.
solution just yet, but that changed. And you're right, like getting out in front of the customers. And the reason I say that is I didn't have a ton of budget to get out in front of the customers, but
Hmm.
once I did, and I started getting out in front of the customers, there was that you look around and you see the environment that they're in, and you go, oh, no wonder you're having problems with this errant light that's coming in, because you got the skylight there, and all of a sudden you're like,
Right.
we need to filter out for this type of situation, right? And they don't know it. They don't know that it's
Hmm.
an inherent problem or anything else. So I agree. I think when you're in problem solving, and you're there where they go, hey, we have this
Uh-oh.
problem, we need you to come in and solve it. I think taking it a step back, right? Like
Oh,
before
you
that
froze on me.
happens. Oh, my back?
There we go.
Okay.
Now you're back.
I think taking it a step back from they call you because, you know, business development is, hey, call us, we're the problem solving company, is
Hmm.
injecting that problem into it, or the not the fear or anything else, but you know, like why they need you for that, or
Hmm.
what happens in these situations. So, you know, I got really good at, and I think I would call you every once in a while. I got really good at calling my vendors because I figured my vendors were my customers, right? Not the other way around. A lot of people will think, oh, my vendors, they serve me, give me better pricing, give me more leads, give me, you know, more allocation, right? Usually the conversations that you hear, I would change it around, and you know, like I was telling Fred, I love getting creative because um it's, I think if you change the conversation, it changes the outcome a lot. So a lot of times I would call the vendors and be like, hey, you guys are a big organization. Your customers are probably pissed because they're not getting their product on time. They can't get anybody on the phone because you got one person answering the phone. It takes you 48 hours by ISO standards to get back to them for, you know, what the progress is on their PO, or if it did get in the system. Dealing with a small company, I can tell you, someone calls me on my mobile, I'm going to tell you exactly where that order is. I'm going to, so, and being able to do that small batch customization, I was able to
Hmm.
say, look, it's going to take a PO of 500 pieces to get you guys to even move on something, or even to think about it. So knowing
Right.
those gaps were, I was able to tell the customers like, look, it's not us or IDS, so it's not us or Cognex or anybody else. It's us and, right? Like
Hmm.
we are in this place because I know what value we bring, and I know what problems you have, and I know what problems, you know, our vendors have. So I'm able to build my value prop and my
Hmm.
customer service base based upon that, right? And I think that, you know, like in my presentation, getting creative and knowing where your customers' pain points and where your suppliers' pain points are, and being able to play that if you are a middleman makes a big difference, right? And even if you like take it to, you're a manufacturer, and you know, being able to say, hey, my competition, yeah, it's staunch on the competition, but they have these limitations. This is where we excel, right?
Hmm.
Is
True.
big.
And you guys definitely had the knowledge and the experience to that customers could lean on.
Yeah, I mean, you have to execute, right? You can't just say things and not be able to execute. You definitely have to do that.
Yep. That'll lose trust quick.
Especially in that industry, man. Oh my goodness. Fred, you were high up there in the manufacturing process. What how did BD interface with you guys, and how big of a how, tell us like a quick story around that, good or bad. And guys, I'm sorry, we got 4 minutes left, and if anybody needs to ping me, my contact information's there. I'd be more than happy to have some one-on-one time.
So fortunately, I've worked at a lot of companies where the culture was customer first. And in order to serve the customers, you've got to have horizontal flow of all your processes. And so in companies I've worked with in industry and companies that I've supported from consulting, uh, maybe they start out getting their manufacturing or operation processes in place, but very quickly there's a focus on how do you hand off from business development, from sales into manufacturing and execution. So having that tight communication and then the feedback loops. And one of the things you had called out, William, was you had a reference to customer service. Customer service, if you really dig into what that group does, they've got some incredible insights on customers and ideas for new products and services and where the friction is. So that's a great part of the organization to tap and learn and get feedback loops back to business development.
Yeah. I appreciate you bringing that up. I think customer service is why we do the things that we do, right? It's to help the customers that we serve. And man, if that's where we focus, you're successful. You're gonna be successful. The money will come for sure. I wanted to open it up to Shelby or Maria that's with us still. You guys have anything that you would like to add or? And it's
Will,
you guys are
I'm I'm
in mode.
I'm in the process of absorbing and learning from the wise people. I
You
love
got
what you
two
shared
of them
today,
on the line, Fred and Jeremy, for sure.
and I got great feedback. I like the input. I think that this is great. So, for me, oh, a lot of work to do here. A lot of work to do.
What was the one thing that stood out to you?
Well, I really, one of the things that, well, is I think that is JB from IDS. You both guys were recently talking, and he mentioned about it's so important that you share, well, having the good communication with the customer. I like about keeping the customer informed through the process, engaging them, but as well, showing them that you have the knowledge, right? That you can handle this. I think that in the industry, super important. I like about consistency. You mentioned that, and definitely creativity. So keeping those things in mind to keep providing an excellent, be like, I get like they need to feel from me that I'm part of their company, that I'm here to help them. I understand their business, right? That I can provide the right solution because I know them. I know my network. I know my providers, the manufacturers. So I'm an asset.
Yeah, that's huge. Hey guys, I really appreciate you all joining today. I apologize for the issues that we had, the technical issues. I'll send a link out to everybody that wasn't able to make the call, but if you guys need anything, ping me. I'm here. The next one I think I'm going to do is maybe diving into this a little bit more, some of the tools that have been successful for me. So if you guys have some something to say about that, shoot me a private message.
Okay,
Awesome.
thank you,
Thanks,
Will.
Will.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks,
Have a great
everyone.
one.
Bye.
Take care.